Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel and welcome to another video. So tonight we are back in the shop working on the second gen project, kind of the bread and butter of the channel, the reason why it was started. So if you've been following along, please continue to support and like the video. That really helps out the algorithm in YouTube. Also, if you're new here to the channel, please subscribe, share the video, do what you can to kind of get it out there in decent community, start spreading the word. But with that, let's get into what we are working on tonight. So tonight we're going to be diving headfirst into installing the rockers and the valve bridges. So as you can see right here, only thing we have are our push rods. And so we need to get our intake rocker and our exhaust rocker, all 6 of them. We need to install those, and also the valve bridges right here. I do already have them laid out here on the table. I spent some time last night kind of lubing them up, with oil, and then we'll go ahead and before we actually install them, I did buy some of this Hot Shots assembly lubricant. We'll do a dash or a dab of assembly lube where the head stud and the pivot ball on the rocker meet up at, and then also in here where this little coupler has a little bit of play in there, we'll drop a dash of lubricant down in there. And then inside the oil can is the Valvoline VR1 Racing Oil, the 28W50. That's what D&J has in the engine right now as far as break-in oil. And then once we break the engine in, then we can drain it and put our normal 15W40 in it. So just to make sure that everything's lubed properly and we don't have any metal-on-metal contact points when we go to fire the engine up, I'm just going to kind of just douse everything with the VR1 Racing Oil as far as valve train goes and any moving parts. So we're gonna go over how to do it, how to install it, and then we're also gonna go over how to set your valve lash and how to find top dead center, and go all that fun stuff to make sure that everything's in time correctly and our valve lash is set properly. So start lubing up all these rockers, and then we'll pause it so we can go to install them, and then we'll go from there. All right, first thing we're gonna do is just put a dab of assembly oil inside our cavity where our rocker bridge is going. It's sitting on top of the valve spring. As you can see, you don't need much. You just need to put a little bit down in there. And then just do the other side. And the next thing we'll do, we'll go ahead and add our oil to our pivot ball right here for the push rod, and then also pivot point right here for where this is resting on the valve bridge. I don't want to add it to the trunnion because this has oil galleys and I'm afraid that this is too thick and it won't flow through it. So for the trunnion, we'll just go ahead and use our 20W50 oil that is already in the engine, and then that should flow nicely through these trunnions, because when you pull this out, your oil galleys for trunnions, if you can see this, so you have your oil galley right there. All right, and then once we get those done, we're just going to do a slight coat of oil on all the rocker pedestals. Just make sure that they're clean and there's no dust, no dirt in them. So this won't take long. We just need to do a fine layer of oil just to make sure that everything's lubed up properly before we have first fire. All right, so now you can see that we have everything lubed up properly. We have everything ready to install. So just to recap, we got rocker pedestals, we got valve bridges, and then we have intake is your smaller rocker, exhaust is your bigger rocker. We want 10 thou on our intake, and we want 20 thou on our exhaust for valve lash. But moving into what tools you need to go ahead and get yourself an Allen set, feeler gauges, a 14 millimeter, and then I just have my Milwaukee electric ratchet for running these rocker bolts down into the head. All right, and then to make sure that you have all your rockers adjusted properly, you need to find top dead center. The best way that I was able to figure it out, because of the way the engine sits right now, and I don't have injectors in the engine, was I just ended up sticking a screwdriver down the injector hole and let it ride on #1 cylinder piston all the way into where you can kind of see it top out, and then go back down, and then you find that little middle spot. There's other ways to do it, but because of the way the engine's set up, in here you have your VP44 gear, which has a timing mark in it, right? But there's no point on the timing case for a reference as far as finding your top dead center. On a stock timing cover, you do have that. You just line the two marks up, and then you have your top dead center. On common rail trucks, you have an actual top dead center mark on the fluid damper, but on 98.5 to 02 VP44 engines, you don't. So this is the best way. If you look down in here, we have each injector hole taped off, but we can pull that back, and then if you look down in there, you can see the top of the cylinder, right? Well, as I go to turn, you'll see that kind of fall back down, but I have Dad in the shop to help me kind of explain. So you can see the top of the cylinder right there, and then as he turns it, see it going down, all right? So that was just the easiest way. And letting the screwdriver gently ride on top of that cylinder, you can easily tell where it's top dead center. First thing we're gonna do is go ahead and lubricate our valves. Just go ahead and run some more VR1 oil on top of our valve springs. Like I said, this engine did sit for a while. They come oil pressure checked from D&J, but for the amount of time it's been sitting, all that oil probably fell back down throughout the oil galleys. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and lubricate our valve springs all the way through. We'll put a little bit of oil on the pedestals where the rocker pedestals sit, and then we'll go ahead and start installing our rocker arms. All right, so valve lash, what you wanna do is you wanna get the engine top dead center. Once you do that, you'll see here, kind of the push rod alignment. What we have is we have one intake good to go, two intake, and then jump all the way to 4. That's good. And then for your exhaust, you can go ahead and do 1, and then you can do 3, and then you can do 5. And you go ahead and flip it or rotate the engine 180 degrees. Right now, you can tell on #6 cylinder, the push rods are above #5 where they're sitting. So both these, if they're already installed, they'd be tight. So when you go ahead and flip it 180, then you can do the rest of them. And then we can go ahead and adjust the valve lash for all of them. So we're gonna keep the engine in this orientation right now. Go ahead and put our little tape over our injector hole. And then from here, we can start lubing it up and getting everything installed. All right, so we got everything lubed up on the head of the engine. Looking down here, everything's good to go. I'm gonna now drop some assembly lube in the cup of the push rod and then start getting our pedestals and each rocker put on. We're gonna go ahead and install all 6 of them, and then we'll go ahead and adjust the valve lash. All right, as you can see, we have the exhaust and we have the intake on. Right now they are super loose. So that's what we have this for right here. This is where we adjust. Right now it's just a 10 millimeter for these 2 rocker arm bolts. I gotta look up the torque spec. I think it's 18 foot-pounds. And then you can see our valve bridges right here. They run this way across, and then you have your pivot pin right here for the arm of the rocker arm. So as you can see, we have a lot of play, but we'll get that all adjusted And then I'll show you what to do as far as getting that adjusted with a Allen wrench and then a 14 millimeter. All right, so I was incorrect about the 18 foot-pounds. It's actually 27 if you look in here. So if you look right here, here's the 2 bolts that need to be torqued to 27. We got our torque wrench. So we're just gonna gently bring these down to 27 foot-pounds. There's 27. There's 27. All right. For the next part of actually setting the valve lash, we're gonna have a 5 millimeter hex head or Allen key, and then we have a 14 millimeter for the jam nut. And so what we want to do is just go ahead and set these down somewhere where they don't get lost in your valve train, but we'll set them down. And so on intake's always a small one, exhaust is always a big one, or front one, back one when you're staring down the head of the engine from the timing cover. But what you want to do is you want to take your 10 thou feeler gauge, and then I got these off Amazon. They're pretty good buy as far as it being angled and really easy to slide in there. This is pretty easy just in general because there's nothing else around but while the truck's together and you just want to check valve lash in the truck itself. But this angle part, so what you want to do is right there I have no resistance. You can see it kind of lift up. So we want to take our Allen screw. You want to back this jam nut off a pretty good amount. When we want to take this, we just want to run this down, and you can see the rocker arm run down with it. So what we want to do is we want to apply pressure to your feeler gauge, and right there I got a little bit of resistance. It is oily in there, that's good. And so we can crank down on it just a little bit more, but if I go too much I can't pull the feeler gauge out. So we know to back off that right there. We'll probably stand to go a little bit tighter. All right, so that's good right there. All right, and then you want to keep this in place. And then go ahead and grab your 14 millimeter. 14 millimeter on your jam nut. Put that down in there. You want to hold in place as you tighten this one. All right, and that will make sure that you set it. I like doing it this way. I have a little bit more leverage and control with the Allen. So with that one, go ahead and just give it a good snug. We can go back and check right here. So right there, we have a nice, good, little bit of resistance, but not too much as far as our clearance goes for our valve lash. All right. And then you move on to the exhaust, same thing, except what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a 20 thou clearance on that one. And with that, you can kind of move these. I separated so you don't have to keep on swinging them back and forth through the feeler gauge set. So we'll go ahead, get our feeler gauge underneath there, tighten this one down. This one's a little bit stiffer, so it's easier to maneuver in there. So you can go ahead and give that one a little bit of resistance right there. I can kind of tighten this down right there. So I'm gonna just back that off just a little bit. So we got a little bit of resistance. Pretty good right there. And then we'll go ahead and grab our 14 millimeter and tighten it down. Okay, and that is basically what you do on all of them. The reason I was able to do both of them on number 1 cylinder is because at top dead center you do both the intake and the exhaust at the same time. You'll have to alternate, and then on number 6 you can't. We'll have to flip the engine 360 degrees for number 6 to both be down, so you can adjust both the intake and the exhaust on that. And so that's kind of the firing order of the engine and the way that you just go about installing all these rockers. right now, let's just get all these put on and then we'll go from there. All right, hey guys, catching up here. It's actually the next day. So my phone ran out of storage while shooting last night. So lost some content there. But we're just gonna go over exactly what we did. We ended up finishing out the rest of the rocker assembly and adjusting the valve lash. And so I'll pull the valve cover back off so we can see everything completed, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so to recap, here is where we're at. So you can see all 12 rockers are on. Every single cylinder gets one, so 1 through 6. And if you come and look right here, this is where you adjust them at. Everything's been torqued down properly. This stud right here is 27. Once you get it set, this jam nut is 18, and you can see all the way down. One thing that makes it tough right now is how tall the engine is sitting up, given that we are on dollies down here. So working on this is pretty darn tall, given that we do have our 3 1/4 inch Theron springs. So having to get on top and show everything. But if we take a look here, cylinder 1, both rockers are loose. All right, so that means that we are top dead center, so you can hear it. We got a play right there. We got play right there. All right. And so with it being top dead center, that means that you can do 1 and 1 intake and exhaust. And then if you just go down, you can feel which ones are loose. So 2 intake, 2 exhaust is tight, 3 intake is tight, but 3 exhaust you can do. And then number 4 intake is loose. You can go ahead and adjust that one in this orientation. And then number 4 exhaust is tight. 5 intake is loose. And then back here, both number 6 intake and exhaust are tight. And then from there, you want to roll the engine over 180 degrees. Right now, we are still top dead center number 1. So we are going to go ahead and mark a 12 o'clock position on the fluid damper, the balancer, because right now there's no other reference other than how we did it. We're dropping a screwdriver in there and letting it ride on the top of the piston. But when the injector's in there and the crossover tube's in here, and then the fuel line is running from right here back to the VP44, you don't have access to drop a screwdriver in the injector hole very easily. So that is why we're going to just go ahead and mark our fluid damper. But that kind of rounds out the rest of installing all this. So we do have a full valve train engine locked and loaded, ready to go, oiled, and ready for first fire. So honestly, not too bad of an install. Hopefully this video helps y'all out, starting from scratch. Obviously it's the same process if you already have an engine that's built, just finding top dead center. So that'll kind of round out this video. Wanted to go in depth about the way that I did it, at least for this engine, for a brand new engine, brand new startup. So yeah, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow along for more. We actually have our VP44 ordered. We have new fuel lines. then we have crossover tubes, and then we also have the injectors. So we basically have the entire fuel system actually in the house, ready to be put on. So next video we'll cover all that. We'll go in depth again on that. So all the fun parts, all the parts that make power, I kind of want to do a little bit of lengthy videos focused on that. Talk about the parts that I'm using, at least to start out the build. So stay tuned for that. All that stuff will be put out here shortly. So we're just gonna start cranking out the videos, at least for the 2nd gen build. And she's coming right along. Impressed to say the least. Just one step closer to first fire, and that's what we're all working for. So yeah, so just be sure to like the channel, subscribe to the channel, share this where you can, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Boss out.